June 2022. I'm Josh Mandeville, the CTO of Qubit Networks. I have with me this month Ryan Seberg, the CEO of Qubit Networks. How you doing,
Hi,
Ryan?
everyone. I'm doing awesome. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thought we'd have an in-house talk this month on the left of breach. What this has to do with is cybersecurity. We've seen a huge increase of cybersecurity attacks. We've even seen some customers hit with cybersecurity breaches. And we've talked a lot about this left of breach, or it's called left of boom in some circles. What is your take on these terms as a business owner and how it pertains to Qubit Network? Has it changed our views on breaches?
Well, yes, it has for sure. And just in general, like every other business owner that's out there, this is worrisome. If a breach happens, it's very, very disruptive to your business, just kind of in general. For us, I think it could be, potentially even worse because we're supposed to, people are paying us good money to help prevent these things, or at least try to prevent these things. So
Sure.
there's certainly a damage to reputation if something happens. But we've worked with, we've been involved in a couple of situations for clients that did get compromised. Then that exposed us into a whole new world, and that's kind of, I didn't even know what this left of breach even was until we started to work on a couple of these. And so, generally speaking, to me, if you think about because like most of our minds, right, thinks left to right, right? You just, as you read and things, you're just kind of going left to right and up to down. So if you think about left of breach, if here's the breach, right, we want to do everything we can to get right to that line, so that if we do cross over into the breach, we're ready to roll. And so what we've kind of learned through this is that we need. So we had a client get compromised.
I was just going to say we had a client compromise where we learned this. Yeah.
And it wasn't a client that we were managing or anything about. We had sold them some firewall equipment, and it was actually some servers that weren't patched right that kind of led to the breach. Which is very typical of how breaches kind of happen, right? They expose vulnerability a lot of times around not a security patch or get in through email or something. But I mean, very rarely now are they getting in through the firewalls.
Right. Yeah, they're not hacking the firewalls, they're hacking the hole in the firewall.
Right.
Yeah.
So our immediate instinct was to shut things off, unplug the internet, those types of things. And I remember we didn't do that. And then the insurance company got involved, and they asked the question of, what have you done to preserve the evidence? And I can remember you and I were like, oh man,
yeah, exactly. I never even thought about that before.
Exactly. So our whole mindset really changed really in that moment and then we watched that client go probably 5 days before anything happened.
Yeah,
right?
Before we could even do anything. I think all we did, we added a firewall block, but as far as remediation, we had to wait for all the lawyers and all that before we could do anything, which was shocking.
The cybersecurity, the lawyers were involved, and they had to get, documents signed between the customer and the vendors that were helping, and just all these ducks had to be in a row before any work could be done. And so I think the concept in the left of breach is to do all of that work, getting the ducks in the row, right? Get all of that done ahead of time, so that if the breach actually happens, you're not chasing all of that stuff at that point. You already have documents in place, the insurance company's teed up, you have your lawyers in place, so that when something does happen, you're working on remediation right away. You're not working on getting paperwork together, et cetera.
I think a lot of companies have just signed this cybersecurity insurance and haven't ever talked to their cyber insurance about what happens if we breach. Would that be
Right.
their first step, talking to their cyber insurance, or?
Well, so what we did, so we now have a lawyer who specializes in this, on retainer, right? So I retained him from Cubit. He's on retainer, and I also verified that our cyber insurance company could work with that lawyer. So, so for us, like, we're probably not as close to the breach on the left as maybe we should be, but we're a heck of a lot closer
We were,
than we used to be.
especially since we didn't know that.
Yeah, exactly. So we're helped by the fact that we're not holding any,
We don't hold any data.
yeah, exactly. So we're not holding customer data, et cetera, which takes a little bit of the, I'll say, risk off. But like, reputation is probably our biggest risk, and then just disrupting business operations is always costly too. But we've become, as like much more proactive in kind of what we're doing. I kind of used to, I mean, listen, I started this company with just a kind of a dream and a concept, and so I've been doing it now for 9 years, but it's sometimes you become very reactionary in business, and
Right.
so we're trying to be more proactive in things, and so we have a formalized training program on cyber. It's pretty good, and
Yeah, it is.
we haven't taken anything. I've stopped taking things for granted. Like I've thought, well, people will know this. Like this is just common sense. People will know this, and we're a cyber company. We're an IT company. We're a cyber company. Like our people will know this. And I can remember, like, I've had a couple of my staff in our I'll say our F&A, our finance administration area, that have fallen for things. And
Right.
I got a call from one and the sad part is, like, these people are fantastic people. They really are. And they feel like, they feel like crap over it, but
and they're smart people too.
They are. But I got a call from somebody who said, hey, they won't let me buy, one of my employees, they won't let me buy all these Best Buy all these Best Buy gift cards. And I said, what are you talking about? She's like, well, you sent me an email that said I should go over and get these Best Buy gift cards. And I'm like, no, I didn't. And so then she looked, and someone had spoofed our email, and they had it was, I think, QUIBIT or something. So it was really, and then I had another employee that bought Google Play cards.
Play cards,
and, we just averted that one. So, like, we've never lost any money. We've never, never been compromised, but it's been close, right?
Yeah.
Especially on the buying gift card kind of thing. So additionally, we've definitely spent money on putting in we feel is best of breed products to help. I always kind of say help the innocent stay innocent, and so
exactly.
Our emails are all scanned and attachments opened and all of those things, and links double checked before they come to us. So the ability for one of our employees to click on something or open something wrong is greatly diminished. But awareness is a big deal, and so when we talk to these these specialists or these lawyers, like, they all talk about how one of the things in coming left of breach is to invest in training, and really a lot around people training, just right. Awareness. Like, we have a policy now that never buy a gift card for anyone without physically talking to them on the telephone.
Right. Exactly.
Don't. And then I've even hear horror stories about how people are, like, cloning your voice, and
oh my goodness. Yeah.
So it's just kind of the wild time. So.
Well, and I think that as we've implemented more security, and we've talked about this internally with each other and with customers. Anytime you implement more security, it's less ease of use.
Oh, 100%. I tell that to customers all the time as well. Like, hey, listen, like, anybody who tells you, like, this is going to be just as fast is lying to you.
Right. I mean,
right?
it
Right.
takes a little longer to log into stuff
Yes.
because we're securing it, right?
And so I use the analogy of like just locks on your house, right? So if you just leave your door wide open, like you never lock it, you just walk right in. It's really easy, right? Well, then you put maybe one deadbolt on there. Well, it takes a little bit of time to open it up. Well, then you decide like, well, hey, like, I need a gate at the end of my driveway. Well, now it takes longer to get there. And then you decide like, well, I need like two doors locked and, blah, blah. You're more secure, but it takes longer to get in.
Exactly.
So it's the same way with cybersecurity to me. Like, if emails are getting scanned and looked at and detonated and all these things before you get them, it's going to take you a little bit longer to get that email. Now,
Right.
can that time be 5 seconds or reduced? Yes, but it's not as fast. It just
Right.
isn't.
Right.
To do like like um, to do multi-factor authentication, which is a huge thing,
Which
right?
is
It stops a lot of
required.
stuff from
Yeah,
happening,
exactly.
right? But it just takes a little bit more time.
Yeah.
Um, but I just think as business and just as a society, this is just unfortunately
Just
just
the way it
something
is.
we just got to deal with. It's kind of telling my kids all the time, like, anytime you have a chance to do, two-factor, do it. And it's like, Dad, that just it's kind of a pain. I'm like, well, so's your bank account getting hacked,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. Exactly. And I think most businesses are starting to realize that they're going to have to implement, and it's just not going to be as easy. But I have still hear complaints about, well, this just makes it harder. And
Right. Yeah.
Until the bad guys stop being bad, I think we have to do it.
Exactly. And the patching and things. And so,
Yeah.
it's not, and like, I think we've really pushed this attitude out, but I feel like we used to have kind of an attitude of like, well, we're IT, we're in the technology space, like
Right.
we're good, like nothing's going to happen to us. But now we're pretty psychotic on it. I would say,
Yeah, we are.
as much or more than even our customers. So,
I would say probably more, and we can be a little more nimble, being a little smaller. But like
sure.
it's to implement some of this stuff, we got a little pushback because it's just not as easy. But now
Yeah.
everyone's used to it, and everyone's more security minded with our cybersecurity. Um, I think getting left of breach or close to that mark as possible is important for most customers. I think that most customers have, as they've reviewed their cyber insurance, that's the other part I was going to bring up. The cyber insurance is that requesting all of these security
Yeah.
measures, training, all that. So you got to have something in there for that. Um, but I think a lot of customers probably need to look at how close they are left of breach, and
Yeah.
if they have any questions, they can reach out to us, and
Right.
we can help guide through some of that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. We have the names of uh,
Lawyers and
lawyers, and then there's cyber. Another thing too is having incident response. Kind
yeah,
of dialed in. So like if something happens, right? If
yeah,
there is a breach or something happens, um,
their custom.
there's
Yeah,
companies that focus just on how you deal
exactly.
with that, how do you remediate it, how do you get a hold of the FBI, how do you get a hold of, whoever. So we don't do that. Like we
No,
help with that, but we don't lead the charge. Like
we help remediate, but we don't help. We're not an incident response team.
exactly. And then you can get, like we have some of our customers that do tabletop exercises, which are really good. So
Yeah,
you get all the players around and you go through an exercise of like, okay, you know, we were breached. Here's what happens. You got 10 minutes to figure out the next steps and just kind of go through the motions of a breach, which is real good training as well. So,
for sure.
and those are all left of breach kinds of things. Just getting as much as you can done ahead of time to prepare for a breach is really what that concept of left of breach or left of boom is.
Yeah, I think it's a great it's a great tool to have, is that exercise, that tabletop exercise, and it shows you where your holes are and what you can do to fix them. And honestly, it shows you where your procedure holes are too, such
Yeah,
as
big time.
who do we call.
Right.
And I think that's a lot of just having the phone numbers is an
Yeah,
important piece of that.
for
So,
sure. For sure.
well, cool. Thank you for
Yeah.
talking to me. This was great. I'm sure people will find it interesting, and I appreciate it.
Well, and if, obviously if anybody's got any questions or anything, they can reach out to any of us at Qubit, and we can get them going in the right direction. Even if it's not us, we know the space well enough to be able to point them in the right direction. And if there's something that somebody can learn from,
Exactly.
from my screw ups or almost screw ups or whatever, I'm more than
Or
happy.
for what we've seen in the last year.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, everybody's seeing it more. I mean, it's in the news, and
It's all over.
Anybody who is trying to buy cyber insurance is very aware of this. I mean, listen, for example, so we haven't had any breach, knock on wood, since we've been around.
Right.
But our cyber insurance this year doubled, more than doubled.
Right. Well, and last October, I think it was, they said they ran, some of the big insurance companies ran out of money for breaches by October. So like we're going to see increase in requirements and increase in fees for sure.
Yeah, and the government's more involved in it now too. So there's reporting requirements and such for them as well. So, anyways, it's if it isn't already in a company's leaderships, right in front of them, it will be soon.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. Hey, have a great month.